The stars looked peaceful through the main window of the ship's bridge. Captain Jake Morrison stood quietly, watching the colorful clouds of the Kepler Nebula drift slowly past their vessel. The Defiant Spirit moved through space like any normal cargo ship would, its engines humming softly in the background. "All systems are running normally, Captain," said Lieutenant Amy Rogers from her position at the tactical station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, checking weapon systems that no one else in the galaxy knew existed. The ship looked like an old cargo hauler from the outside, but inside it held the most advanced military technology that humanity had ever created. Jake nodded and walked over to where Chief Engineer Pete Collins was working at his station. Pete was a quiet man who understood machines better than most people understood other people. His hands never stopped moving as he checked the quantum drive systems that powered their ship. "How are we looking, Pete?" Jake asked. "Everything's perfect, Captain. The quantum drives are running at full power, and all our weapon systems are ready if we need them. The cloaking field is working so well that even I sometimes forget we're invisible," Pete replied with a small smile. "Communications Officer Lisa." Belle looked up from her station near the back of the bridge. She had been listening to radio signals from across this part of the galaxy for the past 3 days. Her face showed worry as she removed her headphones. "Captain, I'm picking up some bad news from the Zephyrian Empire channels," Lisa said. "It looks like they're making demands on the human colony at New Haven." Jake's face became serious. New Haven was home to almost 50,000 human colonists. They were miners, farmers, and engineers who had left Earth to build a new life among the stars. They had no military ships to protect them, only a few small defense platforms that could barely stop pirates. "What kind of demands?" Jake asked. Lisa looked at her notes. "The Zephyrians want all the mineral rights to the planet. They also want the colonists to accept imperial rule and pay taxes to the Empire. If they refuse, the Empire says they will destroy the entire colony." Amy Rogers turned around in her chair. How much time did they give the colonists to decide? According to these transmissions, Admiral Vextar is already on his way with a large fleet. The colonists have less than a day before the ships arrive, Lisa answered. Jake felt anger building in his chest. The Zephyrian Empire was known throughout the galaxy for bullying smaller worlds. They had powerful ships and advanced weapons, and they used them to force other species to give them what they wanted. Most of the time, no one could stop them, but the Zephyrians had never fought humans before. They thought of humans as a new species that was still learning how to travel between the stars. They had no idea what humanity was really capable of. The Defiant Spirit was proof of that. On the outside, it looked like a ship that was 30 years old and barely worth scrapping. Inside, it contained technology that was decades ahead of anything the Empire had ever seen. The ship was part of a secret project that only a few people in the human government knew about. Jake had been chosen to command the Defiant Spirit because of his experience fighting pirates in the outer systems. But more importantly, he was chosen because he understood that sometimes the best way to keep peace was to be ready for war. "Pete, how long would it take us to reach New Haven?" Jake asked. Pete checked his calculations quickly. "With the quantum drives at full power, we could be there in about 18 hours. But Captain, we'd be going up against a full Imperial fleet. The reports say Admiral Vextar has at least 12 heavy cruisers and 2 dreadnoughts with him." "That's a lot of firepower," Amy said quietly. "A normal human fleet would need at least 30 ships to have a chance against those numbers." Jake walked back to the main window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 50,000 humans were probably looking up at the same stars and wondering if they would live to see another day. The official Terran Defense Force was months away from New Haven. By the time help arrived, there would be nothing left to save. "What do we know about this Admiral Vextar?" Jake asked. Lisa pulled up more information on her screen. "He's commanded the Third Fleet for about 10 years. He's never lost a battle, and he's known for destroying any world that refuses to surrender to the Empire. The other alien species call him the Planet Killer, because he doesn't leave survivors." "Sounds like a pleasant fellow," Pete said sarcastically. Jake made his decision. He turned around to face his crew. These 3 people had volunteered for a mission that might never see any action. They had spent 2 years floating through space, testing systems and waiting for orders that might never come. Now they had a chance to prove that humanity deserved respect among the stars. Amy, I want you to run full diagnostics on all weapon systems. Pete, start charging the quantum drives and prepare for maximum acceleration. Lisa, send a message to Terran Command and let them know what we're planning to do. What should I tell them, Captain? Lisa asked. Tell them that the Defiant Spirit is going to New Haven to deliver a message to the Zephyrian Empire. A message about respecting human space. Amy smiled as she began checking their weapons. Captain, what if the Empire doesn't want to listen to our message? Jake looked at her with a cold expression. Then we'll make sure they never forget it. The Defiant Spirit changed course and began accelerating toward New Haven. Its quantum drives pushed the ship faster than any vessel in the Zephyrian fleet could travel. In the depths of space, the ship remained invisible to any sensors that might be looking for it. Jake knew that in less than a day, either 50,000 colonists would be saved, or the galaxy would learn that humanity was not as helpless as everyone believed. Either way, the Zephyrian Empire was about to discover that some species would not be bullied. The stars ahead grew brighter as they approached their destiny. In the quiet of the bridge, 4 humans prepared to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Fist, and watched the human colony world grow larger on the main screen. His tall, reptilian form cast a long shadow across the command center as his yellow eyes studied the planet below. New Haven looked peaceful from space, with its blue oceans and green continents reminding him of many other worlds he had conquered. Report on our fleet position, Vexitar commanded in his deep, harsh voice. All ships are in perfect battle formation, Admiral, replied his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Kel Nara. 12 heavy cruisers arranged in attack position, with both dreadnoughts ready to begin bombardment on your order. Vextar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. In his 10 years of commanding the Third Fleet, he had never faced an enemy that could stand against such overwhelming firepower. The 2 dreadnoughts alone carried enough weapons to turn the planet's surface into glass. The heavy cruisers could destroy any defense platforms the humans might have built. What about the planet's defenses, he asked. Kelnara checked her sensor readings. Long-range scans show only 6 small defense platforms orbiting the planet. Their weapons appear to be basic plasma cannons with limited range. There are no military ships present, only civilian cargo vessels and mining equipment. Pathetic, Vextar said with disgust. These humans build colonies but don't protect them properly. They deserve to be conquered by a superior race. On the planet below, Colony Administrator Ben Parker was having the worst day of his life. He sat in the emergency command center, surrounded by mining supervisors, farmers, and engineers, who were all looking to him for answers he didn't have. The walls were covered with screens showing the massive Zephyrian fleet that had appeared in their system just hours ago. Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the Imperial flagship, said communications technician Carol White, her voice shaking with fear. Put it on the main screen, Ben replied, trying to sound calmer than he felt. Admiral Vextar's terrifying face appeared on the screen, his yellow eyes staring directly at Ben. Human Colony Administrator, I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Third Fleet. You have received our Empire's generous offer to join our civilization. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation procedures and surrender all mineral rights to this world. Ben stood up slowly. Admiral, our people have lived on this world for 15 years. We've built farms, schools, and homes here. This is our home now. Surely we can reach some kind of agreement that doesn't require us to abandon everything we've worked for. Vextar's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. You misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. You will leave this world, or you will die on this world. The choice is yours, but the outcome is the same either way. This planet now belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. And if we refuse? Ben asked, though he already knew the answer. Then in exactly 1 hour, my fleet will demonstrate why the Zephyrian Empire rules over 47 star systems. Your defense platforms will be destroyed first, followed by your cities, your farms, and every human structure on this planet. Any humans still on the surface will share the same fate. The transmission ended, leaving Ben staring at a blank screen. Around him, the other colonists sat in shocked silence. They all knew that their 6 defense platforms couldn't stop even one Imperial cruiser, let alone an entire fleet. "What do we do now?" asked Mining Supervisor Dave Chen. Ben looked around the room at the faces of people who had trusted him to keep their families safe. "We evacuate as many people as possible, get everyone to the cargo ships and civilian transports. Maybe we can save some lives." Back on the Imperial Fist, Vextar was enjoying the fear he had seen in the human administrator's eyes. It was the same look he had seen on dozens of other worlds. Fear was a useful tool for controlling inferior species. "Admiral," Kelnara said from her station, "our long-range sensors detected a brief contact about 4 hours ago. It appeared to be a single ship, but it vanished before we could get a clear reading." Vextar waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Probably just a cargo ship that jumped to hyperspace when it saw our fleet. These young species always run when they see real military power." "Should we investigate further?" Kelnara asked. "No. Even if it was a human military ship, what could one vessel do against 14 Imperial warships? Focus on the planet. I want our bombardment to be visible from the next star system. Let the galaxy know what happens when someone defies the Empire." Kelnara nodded and returned to her duties, but something about the sensor contact bothered her. In her 8 years of service, she had never seen a ship vanish so completely from their advanced scanning systems. Imperial sensors could track a single fighter across half a solar system, but this contact had simply disappeared. On New Haven's surface, families were loading their few possessions onto transport ships. Children cried as they were forced to leave behind pets and toys. Adults tried to comfort each other while secretly wondering where they would go. The nearest human colony was months away, and their ships didn't have enough fuel or supplies for such a long journey. Ben Parker stood in the control tower, watching the evacuation efforts through the windows. They had managed to get about 8,000 people onto ships in the past hour, but that still left over 40,000 colonists on the planet. The transport ships were full, and there simply wasn't enough space for everyone. His assistant, Maria Santos, came running up to him with a worried expression. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the outer sensor stations. The Zephyrian fleet is moving into bombardment position. They're powering up their weapons." Ben nodded sadly. He had hoped they would have more time, but it seemed the Empire was eager to make an example of New Haven. He activated the colony-wide communication system one last time. "This is Administrator Parker. To those who couldn't make it onto the evacuation ships, I want you to know that you are the bravest people I've ever known. You came to this world to build something better for your families and your children. That dream doesn't end here." High above the planet, Admiral Vextar gave the order to begin the bombardment, but before his weapons could fire, something appeared on his sensors that made his blood turn cold. A single ship had dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, and it was heading directly toward his fleet. Space near the edge of the New Haven system began to shimmer like water disturbed by a stone. The effect lasted only a few seconds before the Defiant Spirit appeared, dropping its cloaking field as it emerged from what looked like empty space. The ship hung motionless against the backdrop of distant stars, its hull scarred and weathered to look like an old cargo vessel that had seen too many years of hard service. On the bridge of the Defiant Spirit, Captain Jake Morrison studied the tactical display showing the positions of all 14 Zephyrian warships. They were arranged in a perfect attack formation, with the 2 massive dreadnoughts positioned to deliver maximum firepower against the planet's surface. "Amy, what do you see?" Jake asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Amy Rogers worked quickly at her station, analyzing the enemy fleet's formation and weapon signatures. The dreadnoughts are the destroyer of worlds and Imperial vengeance. Each one is over 2 kilometers long and carries enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. The heavy cruisers are arranged to provide cover fire and prevent any escape from the planet. "Their shields?" Jake asked. "Standard Imperial energy barriers. Very strong against conventional weapons, but they won't be a problem for our quantum torpedoes. The real issue is their numbers, Captain. 14 ships is a lot of targets to handle, even for us." Chief Engineer Pete Collins looked up from his station. "Captain, The quantum drives are fully charged and ready. All weapon systems are operating at maximum efficiency. The ship is as ready as she'll ever be. Communications Officer Lisa Bell turned in her chair. Captain, I'm picking up the final countdown from the Imperial flagship. They're giving the colonists about 3 more minutes before they start the bombardment. Jake nodded and walked to the center of the bridge. Through the main window, he could see the distant glow of New Haven's sun. Somewhere near that sun, 50,000 humans were preparing to die because they had refused to surrender their freedom to an alien empire. Lisa, open a channel to the Zephyrian flagship, Jake ordered. Channel open, Captain. Jake straightened his uniform and put on his most polite smile. Admiral Vextar, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran vessel Defiant Spirit. I would like to discuss the situation at New Haven. On the bridge of the Imperial Fist, Admiral Vextar stared at the communication screen in disbelief. The human who had just contacted him looked completely calm, as if he was calling to chat about the weather. Behind the human, Vextar could see what appeared to be an ordinary cargo ship's bridge. Sub-Commander Kelnara, confirm the size and type of that vessel, Vextar ordered. Kelnara checked her sensors quickly. It appears to be a cargo ship, approximately 300 meters in length. Very old design, probably at least 30 years old. I'm reading minimal energy signatures and no visible weapons. The crew of the Imperial Fist began to laugh. Some of them had to hold onto their stations to keep from falling over. The idea that a single old cargo ship was challenging their entire fleet was the funniest thing they had heard in years. Vextar's laughter was the loudest of all. Human Captain, are you perhaps lost? This is a military operation involving the Imperial fleet. You should leave this system immediately before you get hurt. Jake's smile never changed. Actually, Admiral, I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm here to ask you to withdraw your fleet from human space. The colonists on New Haven have done nothing wrong and they deserve to live in peace. This caused even more laughter from the Zephyrian bridge crew. Vextar wiped tears from his yellow eyes. Captain Morrison, do you see those 14 ships surrounding this planet? Each one of my heavy cruisers could destroy your pathetic cargo ship with a single shot. My dreadnoughts could vaporize you so completely that there wouldn't be enough debris left to find. I understand you have impressive ships, Admiral, but I'm still going to have to insist that you leave human space immediately, Jake replied calmly. Vextar's amusement began to turn into anger. Human, you have exactly 30 seconds to turn your ship around and leave this system. If you're still here after that, I'll use you as target practice for my gunners. Jake looked at his crew. Amy Rogers had finished her targeting calculations and was ready to fire. Pete Collins had all systems running perfectly with power levels that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about human technology. Lisa Bell had established a direct communication link with the planet below, ensuring that everything would be recorded for history. I appreciate the warning, Admiral, Jake said, but I'm afraid you're the one who needs to leave. You have exactly 15 seconds to begin withdrawing your forces from this system. The laughter on the Zephyrian bridge stopped immediately. Vextar's face turned dark with rage. What did you just say to me? I said you have 15 seconds to withdraw. 14 seconds now. Vextar stood up to his full height, his claws extending from his fingers. You insignificant little creature. I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. I have conquered 47 worlds. I command the most powerful fleet in this sector. How dare you threaten me? 10 seconds, Admiral. Kelnara, target that cargo ship and destroy it immediately. Targeting systems locked on, Admiral. All weapons ready to fire on your command. 5 seconds, Jake said pleasantly. Fire. Destroy that arrogant human. But before the Zephyrian weapons could charge, something impossible happened. The old cargo ship suddenly moved faster than any ship should be able to move. It didn't accelerate gradually like a normal vessel. Instead, it simply appeared in a different location, as if it had teleported through space. What just happened? Vextar shouted. I don't know, Admiral. The ship just vanished from our targeting systems and appeared behind the 3rd Cruiser Squadron. Jake's voice came over the communication system again, still calm and polite. Time's up, Admiral. I tried to do this the easy way. On the bridge of the Defiant Spirit, Amy Rogers had her hands on the weapon controls. All targets acquired, Captain. Quantum torpedoes are ready. Pete Collins smiled as he watched his power readings. Quantum drives are operating perfectly. Captain, we can jump to any position in the fleet formation instantly. Lisa Bell was recording everything on multiple channels. The colony is receiving our transmission, Captain. They'll have a complete record of what happens here. Jake nodded and sat down in his command chair. Amy, show the Zephyrian Empire what happens when they threaten human civilians. Yes, sir. Engaging the enemy fleet now. The defiant spirit began to move through space in ways that defied every law of physics the galaxy understood. And in the next few minutes, the balance of power among the stars would change forever. The first quantum torpedo left the defiant spirit at exactly the same moment that Amy Rogers pressed the firing button. There was no travel time, no visible beam or projectile racing through space. The weapon simply appeared inside the shield, barrier of the Zephyrian heavy cruiser Blood of Conquest, and detonated with the force of a small star. The massive warship, which had been preparing to bombard New Haven's surface, disappeared in a flash of white light. When the brightness faded, there was nothing left but expanding gas and debris. The 11 other cruisers and 2 dreadnoughts suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that could ignore their most advanced defenses. Impossible, Admiral Vextar screamed from the bridge of the Imperial Fist. No weapon can penetrate Imperial shields. Our barriers are the strongest in the galaxy. Subcommander Kelnara was frantically checking her sensor readings. Admiral, that torpedo didn't hit the shields at all. It appeared inside them somehow. I don't understand how that's possible. Before Vextar could respond, the defiant spirit vanished from its position and instantly appeared next to the heavy cruiser Iron Talon. The human ship was so close that the crews of both vessels could have waved at each other through the windows. But instead of waving, Amy Rogers fired 3 more quantum torpedoes in rapid succession. The Iron Talon tried to turn its weapons toward the defiant spirit, but the human ship was already gone. The Zephyrian cruiser exploded just as its sister ship had done, with no warning and no chance to defend itself. The defiant spirit reappeared on the other side of the fleet formation, behind the dreadnought destroyer of worlds. All ships concentrate fire on that human vessel, Vextar ordered. Surround it and destroy it. The remaining Zephyrian ships began turning toward the defiant spirit, their massive guns swiveling to track their target. But the human ship moved, like nothing they had ever seen before. It didn't follow normal flight paths or obey the usual rules of space combat. Instead, it seemed to teleport from one position to another, appearing wherever Amy Rogers needed it to be. The dreadnought destroyer of worlds was 2 kilometers long and carried enough armor to withstand attacks from entire fleets. Its captain, Commander Zexlock, had never seen his ship take damage in 15 years of combat. He was confident that even if the human weapons could somehow penetrate his shields, his thick armor would protect his crew. He was wrong. The defiant spirit fired. A single quantum torpedo that passed through the dreadnought's shields, armor, and hull as if they were made of paper. The weapon detonated deep inside the ship's reactor core, causing a chain reaction that tore the massive vessel apart from the inside. In less than 10 seconds, the pride of the Zephyrian fleet was reduced to a cloud of burning wreckage. On New Haven's surface, Ben Parker stood in the control tower watching the battle through the colony's long-range sensors. What he saw was impossible to believe. A single human ship was systematically destroying the most powerful fleet in this part of the galaxy. "Sir, are you seeing this?" asked communications technician Carol White, her voice filled with amazement. "I'm seeing it, but I'm not sure I believe it," Ben replied. "What kind of ship is that?" "I don't know, sir. It's not like anything in our database. The way it moves, it's like it's not bound by the same physical laws as other ships." On the bridge of the Defiant Spirit, the crew worked with calm efficiency. This was what they had trained for during their 2 years of secret patrols. Every system on the ship had been tested and improved until it worked perfectly. "Next target, Amy," Captain Jake Morrison said calmly. "Targeting the cruiser Death's Edge, Captain. It's trying to escape to hyperspace." "Pete, can you get us there before it jumps?" Chief Engineer Pete Collins smiled as he watched his quantum drive readings. "Already there, Captain." The defiant spirit appeared directly in front of the fleeing Zephyrian cruiser. The enemy ship's captain had just enough time to see the human vessel before 2 quantum torpedoes ended his escape attempt. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a brief second sun. "How many ships left, Amy?" Jake asked. 8 cruisers and 1 dreadnought, Captain. They're trying to form a defensive circle, but their formation won't help them. Communications, Lisa. Communications Officer Lisa Bell checked her equipment. Still recording everything, Captain. The colony is getting a perfect transmission of the battle. So is Terran Command. Jake nodded. It was important that everyone see what was happening here. The galaxy needed to understand that humanity would not be bullied or threatened. More importantly, the Zephyrian Empire needed to learn that their days of conquering helpless worlds were over. The remaining Zephyrian ships had indeed formed a defensive circle, with all their weapons pointing outward. It was a classic fleet tactic that had worked well against conventional enemies. But the defiant spirit was not a conventional enemy. Amy Rogers studied the enemy formation for exactly 3 seconds before developing her attack plan. "Captain, I can take out 4 ships simultaneously if we position ourselves in the center of their formation." "Do it." The defiant spirit vanished from outside the Zephyrian circle and appeared in the exact center, surrounded by 8 enemy cruisers. For a moment, both sides stared at each other across a few hundred meters of empty space. Then Amy Rogers fired 4 quantum torpedoes at once, each one targeted at a different cruiser. The 4 ships exploded simultaneously, creating a fireworks display that could be seen from New Haven's surface. The remaining 4 cruisers tried to fire at the defiant spirit, but their own formation worked against them. They were afraid to shoot toward the center because they might hit each other. The defiant spirit solved their problem by destroying all 4 ships in rapid succession. Each quantum torpedo found its target with perfect accuracy, passing through shields and armor as if they didn't exist. In less than 30 seconds, 8 Zephyrian warships had been reduced to debris and expanding gas clouds. Now only the dreadnought Imperial Vengeance remained, along with Admiral Vextar's flagship Imperial Fist. The 2 surviving ships tried to retreat, but the defiant spirit was much faster than they were. "Amy, take out the dreadnought first. Leave the flagship for last," Jake ordered. "Yes, sir." 1. Dreadnought coming up. The Imperial Vengeance was the newest ship in the Zephyrian fleet, with the strongest armor and most powerful weapons. Its captain, Admiral Kextar, was Vextar's younger brother and considered one of the Empire's finest naval officers. He had never lost a battle in his 20-year career. His winning streak ended when the defiant spirit appeared above his ship and fired 3 quantum torpedoes directly into his bridge. The weapons passed through the dreadnought's defenses as easily as light passes through glass, and the massive warship broke apart like a child's toy. Admiral Vextar was now alone, his entire fleet destroyed in less than 5 minutes. His mighty Third Fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds, had been reduced to a single damaged flagship. The bridge around him was filled with smoke and sparks from overloaded systems. The defiant spirit appeared directly in front of the Imperial Fist, close enough that Vextar could see the human ship's bridge through his main window. Captain Jake Morrison was sitting calmly in his command chair, looking like a man who had just finished a routine training exercise. "Admiral Vextar," Jake said over the communication system, "I believe we need to have a conversation." Admiral Vextar stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by smoke and the bodies of his crew members. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows across the wreckage of what had once been the most advanced command center in the Zephyrian fleet. Through the cracked main window, he could see the human ship floating peacefully in space, as calm and untouched as if it had just finished a pleasant cruise through the stars. "Admiral," came Captain Jake Morrison's voice over the communication system, "I need you to listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you." Vextar's hands shook as he activated his personal communicator. His entire fleet had been destroyed in 4 minutes and 37 seconds. 14 of the Empire's most powerful warships had been turned into debris by a single human vessel that looked like an old cargo hauler. Everything he thought he knew about warfare and military power had been proven wrong. What are you?" Vextar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jake's face appeared on the main screen and his expression was serious but not cruel. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran vessel Defiant Spirit. What I am is someone who's tired of seeing bullies pick on innocent people. Your weapons, how is it possible? Our shields are the most advanced in the galaxy. Our armor can stop anything. Admiral, your technology is very impressive, but humanity has been studying and learning for a long time. We've developed some new ideas about physics and engineering. Today was the first time we decided to share those ideas with the galaxy. Vextar looked around his ruined bridge. Sub-Commander Kelnara was unconscious at her station, blood running from a cut on her forehead. Most of his other officers were dead. The proud Third Fleet that he had commanded for 10 years was nothing but wreckage floating in space. Are you going to kill me too? He asked. Jake shook his head. No, Admiral. I'm going to let you live. Not because I'm showing mercy, but because you have a job to do. What job? You're going to go back to the Zephyrian Empire and deliver a message from humanity. Are you ready to hear that message? Vextar nodded weakly. He had no choice but to listen. Jake stood up from his command chair and walked closer to the communication screen. The message is simple, Admiral. Humanity has been watching the galaxy for a long time. We've seen how the Empire treats other species. We've watched you conquer worlds and enslave entire populations. We've stayed quiet because we hoped you would eventually learn to behave better. And now? Vexitar asked. Now we're done being quiet. The Defiant Spirit is not the only ship of its kind, Admiral. Humanity has built an entire fleet of vessels like this one. We've been preparing for the day when someone would threaten our people or our colonies. On New Haven's surface, Ben Parker and the other colonists were watching the conversation on their communication screens. The evacuation ships had stopped loading people, and everyone was gathering around whatever displays they could find. They were witnessing history being made. Sir, communications technician Carol White said quietly, are we really safe now? Ben looked at the tactical display showing the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet. I think we are, Carol. I think everything just changed. Back on the Defiant Spirit, Jake continued his message to Vexitar. The Empire has a choice to make, Admiral. You can respect human space and human sovereignty, and perhaps we can all live in peace. Or you can continue your policy of conquest and aggression. And if we choose aggression? Jake's expression became cold. Then every Zephyrian fleet will meet the same fate as your Third Fleet. Every Imperial world will learn what it feels like to be helpless. Every Zephyrian citizen will understand the fear that you've brought to so many other species. Lieutenant Amy Rogers looked up from her tactical station. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting 3 more Imperial fleets moving toward this system. It looks like they received Vextar's distress call before his communications were damaged. Jake smiled grimly. How many ships total, Amy? Approximately 40 vessels, Captain. 2 more admirals are bringing everything they have. Pete, are we ready for round 2? Chief Engineer Pete Collins checked his systems. All weapons recharged and ready, Captain. The quantum drives are operating perfectly. We could fight 10 more battles like this one. Communications Officer Lisa Bell turned in her chair. Captain, I'm receiving a priority message from Terran. Command, they want to know if we need backup. Jake thought about that for a moment. Tell them we appreciate the offer, but we have everything under control. However, they might want to send some ships to help with the cleanup. He turned back to Admiral Vextar. Admiral, it looks like your Empire is sending reinforcements. 3 more fleets are on their way here. Vextar's eyes widened. Captain Morrison, those fleets contain the most experienced admirals in the Empire. Admiral Gextar commands over 50 worlds. Admiral Texvar has never been defeated in battle. If you fight them, we'll destroy them just like we destroyed your fleet, Jake finished calmly. That's exactly the point, Admiral. The Empire needs to understand that we're not bluffing. Jake walked back to his command chair. Amy, prepare to engage the incoming fleets. Lisa, make sure everything is being recorded and transmitted to the Empire's homeworlds. Pete, take us to intercept position. Wait! Vextar called out desperately. Captain Morrison, what if I could convince them to withdraw? What if I could make them understand that attacking you is hopeless? Jake paused. Can you do that, Admiral? I can try. If I transmit what happened here, if I show them the wreckage of my fleet, perhaps they will listen to reason. You have 10 minutes before those fleets arrive in weapons range, Admiral. I suggest you make your argument very convincing. Vexitar began transmitting frantically to the approaching Imperial fleets. He sent them recordings of the battle, sensor data showing the complete destruction of his ships, and personal testimony about the impossible capabilities of the human vessel. His message was simple: retreat immediately or be destroyed. The three admirals commanding the reinforcement fleets were initially skeptical, but as they studied the evidence and realized that Vexitar was telling the truth, their confidence began to crack. 42 Imperial warships suddenly seemed like very inadequate protection against an enemy that could destroy 14 ships in less than 5 minutes. One by one, the three fleets stopped their approach and began withdrawing from human space. The most powerful military force the Zephyrian Empire could assemble had been turned back by a single human ship and the threat of what it could do. Jake watched the retreating fleets on his tactical display. Admiral Vexitar, it looks like your friends decided to listen to your advice. Yes, Captain. They are withdrawing to Imperial space. Good. Now remember your message, Admiral. Humanity wants peace. But we're prepared for war. Respect our sovereignty and we can all share the galaxy. Continue your aggression and you'll discover that humans can be very unforgiving enemies. The Imperial Fist began limping away from New Haven, its engines barely functional and its hull scarred by battle damage. Admiral Vexitar sat alone on his ruined bridge, thinking about how he would explain to the Emperor that the Third Fleet had been destroyed by a single enemy ship. On New Haven's surface, 50,000 colonists were celebrating their miraculous salvation. They had been hours away from death and now they were safe. More importantly, they knew that humanity had finally announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that no one could ignore. The defiant spirit activated its cloaking field and vanished once again, becoming invisible to all sensors. Captain Jake Morrison and his crew set course for their next patrol route, ready to deliver the same message to anyone else who might threaten human space. In the depths of space, the ghost ship continued its silent vigil, carrying the hopes and determination of an entire species. The age of humanity's quiet observation had ended, and the age of human respect among the stars had begun.